Introducing, I would say, a very dear friend of mine, and Mary. And let me just give you a little background on how I met Mary. Um, I met her at a FOTS conference after I drank after 19 years. And, we have a word around here, Eskimo. And Mary was one of those people. She's one of my Eskimos. That's no doubt about it. And what I think, I kind of look at Mary as what, varieties of religious experience was for Bill. Mary was the human equivalent to that for me when I was wandering around after having a very revelatory awakening. Mary gave proof and validity and language to what had happened to me because I had a narrative in my head that was coming from this condition of self that was misinterpreting it. And she gave a language, an authority, a reality to that experience. And I think we've been close ever since then. And, she's one of, there's many elders on here, Gary, Mary, there's quite a few. I don't even want to go through and name them, but that's what I consider her. And it's a pleasure and an honor just to introduce you, Mary. So thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. Yeah. Wow. Mary Thier, alcoholic. Nice to be here tonight. I think Sam called me yesterday morning. It's been, it's just, I try to, I've been doing this, I'll just tell you, I'm not going to go into any big drunkalog or anything, but some people I know, and most of you people know, I've been around a couple of years, and I got sober in September of 1973. So I have 47 years in this program, and I really consider myself a seasoned beginner. That probably sounds weird to you, but I don't think there's anybody here that we don't know what these black lines in this book are talking about. However, I've just done a little longer than some. And so they're part of my life today. And I've asked people like our dear friend Gary here, have you arrived anywhere? And he assured me that he hadn't. And so that makes me feel like I'm still a seasoned beginner. And I'm really privileged to be speaking tonight because not for myself, but just an honor on the anniversary of 86 years that Alcoholics Anonymous has been around, and actually is been most of my life, really, of setting examples and principles on how to live, because I sure didn't get it before I got here. I got a lot of values and principles that are good, but they were rules or something. They weren't part of me. Like Alcoholics Anonymous, I think, has become a part of me. So when Sam asked me, I said, for crying out loud, I just talked there. It's been a year since I've been on this emotional sobriety, and I just want to say it's been kind of like my home Zoom meeting with you folks, and I've gained so much, and it's sustained this program. This meeting in particular, I call my home Zoom meeting because I feel this meeting. I just don't hear it. I feel it, and it gives me hope, and it confirms a lot of things that I'm not alone, just trying to do the drill here, and I'm a part of, not apart from. Chuck Chamberlain, when I sobered up in California, and he was alive then, and he used to say that he came in this program feeling apart, separated from himself, from you, and from God. And over the years, I have found that I am not separated from you, from God, or myself anymore. And that's nobody gives you that, my friends. That's something you earn by doing the drill each day. So I kind of did this last time, and I will tell you, it's a process. It's not an event. You're not going to arrive anyplace. In fact, I just finished with an inventory this year, and it's been fun because I really, it had nothing to do with what I was inventorying. I really saw the parts of myself that I keep blocking myself with, the stories I want to believe instead of seeing the reality of what God is doing. And I want to go back and get power and control. And I can see that in myself. So it's been kind of a adventure. Bev told me that when I first came in. She said, Alcoholics Anonymous is going to be either an obstacle course or an adventure. That'll be your choice every day. And for me, it has now become kind of an adventure. When I'm going through things that are rough and painful, I will tell you, nothing's funny when you're going through it. But I have something that I understood after a number of years in this program, that I have a kit of spiritual tools that I can pick up if my life gets unmanageable. And I can take them through the steps, all of the steps, so I can get an awakening about what is Mary Thayer up to. When I was 12 stepped in, the woman that 12 stepped me in said two things to me that I still use 47 years later, is that I'm the fish I gotta catch, number one. And the second thing is, watch what you defend. She says, you don't have to tell me why you're defending that this is right, but you better ask yourself why you're defending. And that has been a gift of kind of like a 10-step thing that I 11-step thing that I kind of look at. What have I been defending? And why do I have to defend so much? And behind the questions is the thing that I found in my journey in this recovery. When I finally came in, I admitted to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. My life was unmanageable. I got to a point where I had to, when I finally said, I can't figure this out, there wasn't any rational logic or reason about whatever. It was at that moment the second step can be applied. And it took me 20 years to really come to believe in a power that would restore me to sanity. Now, what I had done is I had done exactly what the second step said, which was I came to believe that there was a power. I did. I knew that. I was doing Emmett Fox 3 years before I came in. And with Emmett Fox work and stuff, there was a miracle I witnessed that happened with my child. So I knew that there was a God. And then when I came into the halls and I would listen and watch you people, and the shifts that I saw, I knew that something was going on because it was so evident. So I had my sponsors, that there was some power that was happening here. I didn't think it was my power. I didn't think, I was a single parent with a 10 she turned 10 a couple of weeks after I got sober. And I'd raised her by myself since she was 9 months old. And it's not a pretty picture that I was as a drunk, let me tell you. And in those days, we were Alcoholics Anonymous. You didn't hear about her. They didn't put you in rehabs or anything like they do nowadays. And I got sober on the bricks, and as they say, with orange juice and honey and shaking and rattling and rolling. And I had absolutely no respect for myself at all. And I've been drinking to hide from what I was doing for quite a while. So I'm grateful I came in when I did, and people didn't pat me into the grave, is all I can say. So, I mean, with the child, there's a part of me that didn't want to do this stuff and didn't want to go to meetings and stuff. And I remember Rosemary said to me, what good are you going to be to your daughter if you're drunk? And there was things that would come to me. So I would go to meetings and I would continue to watch that belief that I saw in you people. But it took an intellectual, and nothing ever I did in this program at all was wrong, okay? There was a long timer I met when I first came in, and he said something to me, and I'm so grateful. He said, we work these steps poorly until we learn to work them well. If we wait until we do them perfectly, we'll never do them at all. And it was a gift to hear that because, we had Chuck Chamberlain and Clancy and Fast Talk and Norm Alpy and all. I mean, they knew this program so well that, I mean, anything I would do would be wrong. And I was very intimidated, and I didn't think I could do anything right. But because I was told that I'd get drunk if I didn't get a sponsor, and by grace, I got the two best sponsors in the world. I asked her husband, he referred me to her, but they actually, both of them sponsored me and were the foundation, and I couldn't ask for better people. For you people who all knew Don Pritz, if you'd met Hugh Douglas and Bev Douglas, you'd have seen the same thing in their eyes that I saw in Don's. You know, in 1994, I think it was, I spoke at the Fox, and Tom introduced me to Don. I didn't know who Don Pritz was, but he had been introducing me to everybody, and I turned around, I looked in those eyes, and I started the song. I just started the song. And Tom didn't know I was crying, but you know, those blue eyes, they just stayed right on me, and they bore right into my soul, and I felt the presence of a presence that was very apparent in that man. And it was the same eyes that I looked into with Bev and Hugh. Now, why am I telling you all of that? Why would I say that about emotional sobriety? Because if I hadn't felt any safeness and protection with you people, and thank you, Kurt, for what you said to me, because it was given to me, and I'm grateful that that's apparently what you received from me, is that when somebody locks onto you and you know that they care about you, they don't give a damn about your persona, but they really care about your soul, and you're open and you feel that, for a drunk, that's why we're here. I needed to have that. And I didn't get sober gracefully. I was complete self-will run riot. But Bev kept telling me I had to be in these book studies and 12 and 12, and I did. And in my first 20 years of recovery, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, to be honest with you. I was a real screw up. I was naughty all the time. And, you know, I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. And unfortunately, I would get it. And it was not pretty. And so I remember the first time that I understood something else was going on. I was 3 years sober, and Bev, her anniversary was the 10th of September, mine's the 13th. So we always celebrated together when I was out there. And I remember picking up my 3-year chip and just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, because I had been up to getting what I wanted, and I screwed up everything there was, and I was crazy. And, you know, I really was looking for relief and everything. And I turned to her and I was sobbing, and I said, she says, oh, honey, she said, the problem with you is you made the mistake of listening. And I didn't get that for a long time, because I did. I had listened. I'd been in the book studies. I knew the drill. I saw you people change. And why wasn't I changing? And so it took me a long time, but it didn't mean I wasn't improving. I gained spiritual progress. Anything that I applied, something happened. But it was always Band-Aid recovery. I'm in a foxhole. God, help me, help me, help me. It was not consistent. I would get in a foxhole, I would be just a wreck, and I would say, well, I got to do a 4th step. I don't know what happened to the 2nd and 3rd step, but I was always going to do the 4th step, and then I was going to straighten it out, and I'd have the knowledge of what I was up to, and then I would fix it. And so about 20 years, I'd run into myself enough that I kind of sat there and had one of those epiphanies, and most of you people know what that was, is that I was reading Bill's story, and he said he turned things into his newfound friend. And I remember he was willing to have his newfound friend take them away root and branch. And I said, do I think of God as a friend? Very important for you women. I don't know about you guys, but you women that have been battered the hell out of, that have been abused, used and abused. Not that we didn't use and abuse, but those of us that have been. And we have nothing there. my God, I'm not going to make a decision to turn my will and my life over to something that's going to hurt me. So that question, have I come to believe that there is a God of your understanding? No, a God of my experience was one that was a friend. And most of you know I have a best friend. I don't know if Missy's on or not tonight, but anyway, we've been friends since we were 6 years old. I just found a letter I wrote my mother when I was staying with her when I was 12 or something. My mother was down in Florida. I was staying with Missy. It was funny. I was just looking. I'm here in Santa Fe, in case you don't know. I'm not in Tampa. And I have my mother's secretary desk that this is on right now. And I'm going through these things. And anyway, Missy and I have been friends since we were 6. So that means, unfortunately, Missy, I'm going to do this. That means we've been friends for 61 years. And 71 years. How old are we? Yes, 71 years that I've been friends with this woman. And so there isn't too much that if I walk into a room and she's there, I just immediately have the feeling there's an energy when you have a best friend. It's kind of like if you people have a pet. When that pet sees you, there's an energy. And if you kind of just, it just moves you. You don't feel alone, you feel safe and protected. And so I started working with an energy of where I felt safe and protected in this instead of out of my mind in 20 years. And the last 27 years, I guess, I have grown to understand that my head has nothing to do with my recovery, that we do not claim intellectual enlightenment here, we claim spiritual progress. And that means we're going to have a change of heart. And when your heart starts to change, then the way you look at life will start to change, and the way you live in life will start to change. So I'm going to quote, I think it's the Dalai Lama on that. Again, cleaning out the desk, I found a couple of things that kind of relate to why I started to change in the things I read. Because I know, Sam, you say, what are you reading now? Well, I'm reading a lot of things now. But this is kind of where the shift started. Missy and I started doing, facilitating 12-step retreats right after 20 years. So we've been doing about 25 years, I guess. And during the 25 years of doing 2 of these a year and facilitating them, you know, what you're telling people, you learn for yourself more. I don't know what other people are doing, but I'm learning it. But the Dalai Lama says, every change of mind is first of all a change of heart. And I've experienced that. I've actually experienced that. How I viewed things. How I viewed people that I would never, my daughter's father, I used to call my ex-husband around 13, 14 years. I finally stopped that because he's not, it was like I X'd him out. He was a member of the family, as it talks about in our Black Lines. All members of the family need to meet on the common ground of love, tolerance, and something else. And I realized that I wasn't, this was a member of the family. This was Candace's father. And I had X'd him out because of everything that had happened. Well, some of you in the early years know that that shifted, and we became very good friends, and he was a member of this program. He wasn't able to contain or remain one, but during that time, there was a healing that happened for me and my daughter and for him. But there was a change of heart. It was when I finally realized, you know, I don't care what he did. What was I doing? I was totally Xing him out. I'm naughty. And so anyway, amputate, you know, crazy. He'd call and say, send the dime. Don't even call. I mean, I'm a little mean-spirited every once in a while. And so anyways, that became kind of a shift for me. So what happens with emotional sobriety? I didn't know I wanted some emotional sobriety. I mean, you know, I read this in 2006. I found also today the original copy I had there was somebody called Barefoot Bob. It was on the internet, and I downloaded his work in 2006 and was reading this stuff. And I think for the first time I realized that what I'm after more than anything else is something that's Al-Anon, which is, you'll probably quote it better than me, Juana, but it basically says serenity or peace of mind or serenity is not absence of a storm, it's peace within the storm. I believe that's the correct thing. And from 20 to 47, I have had a lot of storms where I had to find peace within the storm. And why did I have the storm? Because I had a spiritual warfare going on within my being. And that's I don't know if you people are going to hear me on this or not, but I don't care. One day you might. This is what happened for me. I realized I never knew this. And early on in my recovery, I was in something called a Gurdjieff group. And for those who don't know who Gurdjieff was, there's a bunch of us AAs that got into it. And he was a Russian mystic. And I guess the modern Gurdjieff today would be Eckhart Tolle, okay? But so I had an understanding within my first 5 years that perhaps there was a persona and perhaps there was another part of me that was not false. In other words, I had so many masks when I came in here. Will the real Mary Thayer stand up? I didn't know who that was. I was like a chameleon. I'd change for whoever you were because I was so frightened and I was so scared. And I had no idea about how to be who I was. And as the years went on, I'd say to Bev, why am I feeling like a chameleon? And she says, just do the steps. And she said, we'll peel that onion and we'll find the real Mary Thayer down in there. And that's what I've done. So I'm a seasoned beginner. I continue to do the steps every year. When this pandemic started last year, I knew I had never gone through a pandemic in my life, sober or drunk, and maybe I should find out spiritual values on how to do that. So last year's inventory was on, the principle of living in a pandemic where I couldn't go out. And who was I supposed to be and what was I supposed to do? And this year I feel as the shift is, and I've been able to travel to Santa Fe, which is the home I was in. And now Heather, bless her heart, Heather and her husband bought my place here, but they keep my bedroom. That's why you see everything behind everything I had all over the house is now on the walls in this one little bedroom. So anyways, I love it. I love Santa Fe. And I realized that I cannot go back into this world the same person that I left. I don't think anybody can. And us that are in this program probably realize that we've had to change each year that we've been in this program. So we're not necessarily as afraid as probably a lot of people who don't have all 12 steps to live by. And we don't have to insist that we go back to the way we were a year and a half ago. That we could maybe enter this world, this day, wherever we are, with a different set of values and principles, not the ones necessarily that I was living with a year ago, which has been my experience so far today, okay? And the only way I can do that is because my growth of coming to believe in the power, not that the power was there, but in the power, has been a result of my continual work with the 12 steps, which is spiritual tools. And what it's done is it has taken away the fears that I was living with and replaced it with faith. When I would do inventories, even last year when I did the inventory on the pandemic, what didn't I like about myself with everything in the pandemic? I didn't like that I would sit and complain in the Florida sunshine about the sad state of the nation. When I saw how I was doing that, the retired businesswoman, just like on the bottom of, page 62, that's exactly the self-centered person that I was. And why was I doing that? I had to ask myself in the fear, why do I do that? Because I'm afraid. Afraid I won't be able to get out. I won't be able to go back to Santa Fe. I was afraid maybe I'd die. I mean, my God, I was afraid I forgot my mask. It was like I was living completely. I wasn't going to have any toilet paper. It was craziness. I was living from fear, no faith. Now, I never ran out of toilet paper, was interesting. I had a little faith that maybe something would happen. Sure enough, my neighbors were bringing me to. It was wonderful. I mean, all these sources happen when we give up the fear and we don't lock ourselves into worrying about things that haven't happened. Correct? And having a base that maybe today I'll get what I need and where I'm supposed to be. During that time when Missy and I were doing these retreats and over, and I get to that fourth step, and it says we make a searching, fearless moral inventory. And for years, I think that it was read that way, but I heard it, we make a fearful garbage inventory. I didn't hear that I was looking for what are my principles and morals and where am I going against them? And so and some people know the workshops I do and stuff, I come out, when I'm done with the fourth step, I have a set of principles and values that I found out are mine. It might be my parents, they might be my sponsors or yours or whatever, but I know they're mine. And I know that my defects of character, my fourth column, which are really my survival skills that was motivated by fear, not faith, are basically not the way I want to be in this world. And when I ask God to remove those fears that I'm afraid of, sickness, all this other stuff, and say, God, as it says on page 68, God, if I wasn't being so fearful, what would you have me be? And I start sitting and meditating about that. I come up with things like he'd have me be curious, he'd have me be authentic, he would have me be trusting of, and I start writing those things down. And then I look at what I didn't like about myself. Well, every single thing that I don't like about myself has no trust, has no curiosity. It's all been based, you're looking for the cause of the condition. The cause is fear. The condition is whatever you're doing that you don't like about yourself. And now you're going to get a value. So when I finish with the fourth step, I have some values on who I am. And one of the things that I came up with this time, which I will tell you that each time I sit and I get to that, to me, it's my sixth column on my thing, on my fourth step. And I say, God, okay, I listed all these fears. I was afraid I'd die. I wouldn't be alone. I'd be, you won't like me. You'll talk about me. Whatever the heck these fears are that I live out of. My ego lives out of. And I just asked God what would have me be. And I come up usually with the same ones, but I came up with a new one this year. And I've been playing with it. And because you want to know about my emotional sobriety, depends on the day, folks. Depends on how much I've left God. And, I'm just doing this drill just like the rest of you. And so I decided to do things. And one of them was surrender. That was what God would have me be, surrender. And I have been playing with that because once I got that, so for the last, I don't know how long it's been, maybe about 10 months or more since I'd done that inventory. I realized that there are areas of my life I've definitely surrendered on, but there's other areas I hadn't surrendered on. And in other words, there's a certain part of me, I'm odd. I read anything at all that my soul gets attracted to. So, I have people, you want to know what books, Emmett Fox I started with, so y'all got that one, right? Kerchief. So that's Ouspensky and Nicole, if you want to know who that old thing is. So I went through that for quite a while. I went through so many. Richard Rohr for the last probably 15 or more. Since Tom and Juana went to hear him and I heard those tapes, I went through Richard Rohr's stuff. I want to read something about this too, of his. And then I moved out here, and of course he's down in Albuquerque and done some things. I love his cohort, Jim Finley, that Kurt knows, and I just think he's unbelievable. Carolyn Mace, I've done a lot, especially this year. So after she wrote Entering the Castle, she shifted enough for me to really feel her. And YouTube has been loaded this whole time. So I've been, doing that. Pema, is it Pema Chodron? Tom just sent me a book. I'm really enjoying that. I got a little pocket, like a daily book of hers just recently I can carry around on. So those are some of them. Thomas Keating was I went through that. The last couple of years, I've been studying Rami Shapiro. Yeah, and it occurred to me with, let's say, Rami Shapiro, let's say Richard Rohr, let's say Thomas Keating. Do you know that all of those very spiritual people have written books about our 12 steps? Ponder that one for a while, folks. You know, and I like this one thing, and now I'm going to get into where I am and kind of what I wanted to go over. I hope this is making sense, because I have no plan, and you know, I've been grieving. There's a lot of grief going on with me, so you got me right now, and this is where I'm at, and I'm just going to tell you where I'm at, and I hope it helps people. But let's see, which one do I want to read first? I don't know where I got this. I think it's out of Carolyn Mace, but I thought it was an interesting piece. It says, we spend most of our time on the surface of our body. And this was probably the first 10, 15, 20 years of my life. I was young when I came in. I wanted to make sure my body was doing well and so forth. And you were attracted to me because, you know, we don't have any self-worth. And if some dude said, I love you, why do I have to work on myself? Geez, I mean, obviously I'm fine. So, I mean, I didn't get to the realization that the body is like just the outsides of a temple, actually. And that within, deep down inside, is the fundamental idea of God. Okay, that's nice. And then I'd go on, but I didn't understand what it said further on page 53, that I had to search diligently within. Not without. Yet as Chuck Chamberlain said, do you ever notice everybody's trying to get something outside of them to put into them to make them feel better? Yeah, I wanted that guy, that job, that dress, that car, that much money, anything outside of me to make me feel better. And he says, but, he said, did you ever notice that everything grows from the inside out? It's only the human trying to get something outside. So all of us have within us a soul. And my Gurdjieff group used to liken it unto an acorn. Some of you folks have known this. I don't even know if I've talked about this before, but this is my journey, and this is who I am. So those acorns are a completely smooth, perfect nut. Have you ever seen them? And then they have this funny little cap on them. It's all rugged and kind of whatever. And the actuality is that when we enter this world, that's our soul. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And as we grow and we drink, or people hit us, or they yell at us, or whatever the heck happens to us, we build this crusty little cap to protect our souls, okay? And my belief is that when I finally got to Alcoholics Anonymous, it was like somebody had cracked that cap and a little light came in and my soul felt you people. And my journey in recovery has been continual cracks in the cap that open to see where I am not only driven by 100 forms of fear, but I'm driven by 100 forms of self-delusion. And I am deluded to where I am. You people see me better than I can see myself. That's why we need each other. That's why we have meetings, why we have sponsors and talk to each other all the time. You know, because I'm the fish I got to catch. I can't see what I'm up to. But if I spend some time with any one of you, I get to see a little bit more about what Mary Thayer's up to and why I'm defending so hard and how it's being from fear, not faith. And I grow and I get enlightened and I get a little bit more balance, sound thinking and balance when I finally can get into the realization the only thing I'm going to claim here is spiritual progress. And that means I'm building a relationship with some presence that if I understood it, I'd be it. So I don't understand it, but I have experienced that presence. I have experienced that. I know when I'm present in the presence, and so do you people. That isn't just for me. I knew that when I first came in and Sybil looked in my eyes the first night and walked right through all my masks and said to me, welcome home, honey. I mean, I felt that at a level that, I mean, I was never welcomed. I was beaten and sent away to school, you name. So it was like, what's happening here? So it's mystical, it's magical, and it's something I would never use those words before. So I spent most of the time on my externals in my body and what you could do for me, or what I could do for you so I'd get what I want. And it says, I knew something about the brain, but not much. My body has its purpose and function. It can be likened to the foundation, the walls, and the roof of a building. It has indeed been referred to as a temple of the soul. It will turn into the temple when I become permanently attuned, now listen to this, attuned to the indwelling spirit. Until then, my body is often just a utility and storage building that has houses, a limited database containing some memories, skills, records of hopes and disappointments, files of pleasure and pain, all of which validate the existence of the only tenant, my ego. The ego thinks it is in charge of my life. It tells me through the evidence provided by the senses that I am autonomous and independent and completely separate from other people. It knows nothing about God. My soul does. When I perceive the promptings of the soul and begin to seek God, my ego feels threatened and employs its entire arsenal to protect its supremacy. It cannot stand the idea of having to share its power with anything or anybody, let alone something that cannot even be perceived by the senses. I probably know the symptoms of the ego. It's a feeling that I am better than others, a sincere belief that I owe my success only to myself, a conviction that I am absolutely wonderful and my mind is brilliant, a desire to take all the credit, a need to be always right and have the last word. When we are out of touch with the indwelling spirit, I'm going to put it in the I. When I'm out of touch with the indwelling spirit, most of my conscious time, I allow my ego to run my life. My ego is never asleep, always ready to fight for its territory at a moment's notice. My ego stands between my soul and God. It will never let God enter unless, now here's the kicker, everybody, unless I tame it by regular prayer and meditation. So I'm constantly I am someone that prays. I am someone that meditates. I do not have a formal thing I do forever and ever. I ask my soul what it needs. I love this new technology that has this insight timer. I can ask it for whatever I want and sit there and meditate, or I can do a completely silent one. I've experienced over this past year, I don't know how long I'm talking here, but over this last year has been very influential. I love it. I didn't want to fall asleep during this time because I knew God stopped the world for a reason, and I sure as heck wanted to have some communication about what was going on. And so I don't know what it was. It was March, I guess. There's a member of this program, and years ago somebody asked me to do some talk on the 11th step, and I remember I called Dick B., who wrote those books about the Oxford group and AA. He was living in Hawaii at the time. He sent me these books, and I read about this thing that the Oxford group did, which was this quiet time, and how they had God calling as part of the Oxford group. It was 2 members of the Oxford group, and they would pray, and then after they prayed, they would ask God to direct their thinking, that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives, and they'd stop and they'd write the first thoughts that would come in. Because if you go down a little bit on page 86, it says our thought life gets on a higher plane when we ask for that. So the thoughts that are coming through your head, you want to be writing them down because they're not from your ego. They're from, that's what we're doing. We're trying to improve our conscious contact here. So the contact is now higher, and you'll start to realize if you practice this for a while, that there is something beyond your personal me thought that comes in, and it'll be about others and maybe a way of doing things. If there is a presence, it's present all the time trying to reach us. You know, I have sponsees that say to me, I meditated today. I said, oh, I bet your God was awful happy to hear from you. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, it's supposed to be like our best friend. Mrs. happy to hear from me. I was happy to hear from her. You know, it's like, but there it has to be a two-way street type thing. And I didn't understand that for a long time. So what was I talking about? Let me see. It was on a higher plane. Oh, and so I did this, and I did it for about, I don't know, 6 months, and I just wrote, and then I shared, because I have something I live by. One of my principles is that I do the opposite of the saying after everything is said and done. More said than done. That's what I would do on the bar stools. I would talk about what I was going to do, and I'd have another drink instead of doing it. So my goal, or for the last 47 years, and then I talk to you about I've experienced, because we're here to share our experience, strength, and hope, not my opinions about something. And I think that's real important, and that's kind of how I was raised in this program. So somebody was saying about this two-way prayer. Now they call it, instead of quiet times, two-way prayer, which maybe they were calling it then anyways. And there's a father. How do you like this? Father Bill W. Father Bill Wilson, I believe, that is a member of our program. He's about a year more than me. And I was listening to a story, and he said right around 20 years something happened to him. And I went, God, so did it with me. You know, so it's kind of fun. But he has some kind of a, these Zoom things that I had a lot of contempt prior to investigation on. I went on and I, listened to, it was a 2-hour workshop on this two-way prayer. And at the end he said, why don't you do this for, he challenged the people to do it for a month. So I did. I did, so I can talk about it now. It's pretty much what I can say to you. Not from years ago when I was doing my program, but from just the last 10 months. And it was profound. It was really, really profound. It opened another, in the page 86, 87, and 88, which I have read for years. And now they have it on the Insight Timer thing. They read it to you. And so there's no excuse that we can't be doing this stuff. And it said that when we don't know what the next step to take, that we ask for inspiration, intuitive thought, and a decision, relax and take it easy. And for years I've done that, but I missed one word in there to ask for that I hadn't been asking for. And over the last probably 4 or 5 months, I've been saying it. It's changed what's happened for me. And it was one little word. It's so funny to me how, you get a new experience. So set aside what you think you know, and something else comes in. But the word was, I get many intuitive thoughts. I get much inspiration, but I hadn't asked for the decision. And that's what the 11th step says. We have to ask for the decision, which is basically asking for the power to carry it out. And then it has this other thing on page 87 that says that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems or something. And I had read that wrong. I'm just going to read it to you. And then I meditated about this, and it has helped me so much. It says, on the wrong page, 87, it says, conclude, I be shown all through the day what I always put it in the I, so I'm going to put it in the I. I'm going to be shown all through the day what my next step is to be, that I be given whatever I need to take care of such problems, especially, I need to ask especially for freedom from self-will. And I stopped right there because then I understood the whole thing that I hadn't understood before. When I read that over and over again, I think I heard it this way, at least this is the way because I didn't hear it this way. In fact, I looked it up and said, it doesn't say that, but it does. It says, that I be shown all through the day what my next step is to be, that I be given whatever I need to take care of such problem. That doesn't make sense. I'm going to ask for what my next step is to be, and then I have to ask to be given something because there's going to be a problem. I think I thought it said, And maybe if a problem comes up, I'd be given whatever I need. But then I understood why it says that, because I'm self-will run riot. I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, self-deluded. I'm deluded, thinking that I have some power to know what's next. The other day, I do this, and I'm going to give an example. Hugh Douglas said something to me when I came in. He says, just because you're an Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't mean everything's going to be great. He said, but I promise you, if you get a flat tire, more than likely somebody will stop and fix it for you. You'll be next to a garage. So about a week and a half ago, or I don't even know when it was, I woke up and Heather knocks on the door and she said, somebody broke into your vehicle last night. And I got up to get dressed. And as I got dressed, because I had just woken up, I started in my mind to say these lines. That was it. I just said, on awakening, okay, we better direct this thinking. I don't know what my next step is to be, give me whatever I need, etc. And, I got dressed, went out, and sure enough, it was shattered, and, all this stuff was going on. And I said, and the neighbor had told them, and turned out we realized that a couple of the cars had been, their windows, mine was broken, someone was cracked, and another person had left their window open and had gotten in. But long story short, the police came, all the stuff was done, everything. And I walked back in. Now there's glass all throughout my little van, and it shattered everywhere. And I sat down and I realized that I have insurance. Nothing was stolen except the $2 I keep in there for the homeless. Second time this year that I've had somebody break in. At least I left the door open last time. And so they got the $2, and that was it. And then I realized that Heather was out there with her shop vac, cleaning out the glass and sweeping it up. And I have a gal I work with here in Santa Fe they own some kind of a garage thing for motorcycles, and she referred me to the glass place. So I wasn't paralyzed by that all day, all week, or anything. And I got what I needed at that time. So I'm going to read you one more thing, and then I'm going to stop, okay? This came to me from Richard Rohr. I read it in 2015, and if you attend my workshops, you usually hear me talk about it. I didn't understand why people kept coming back to my workshops. Anyways, here it is. And he talks about something. He says, what we see in many of the Eastern religions is not an emphasis upon verbal orthodoxy, but instead an emphasis upon practices and lifestyles that, if you do them, not think about them, but do them, your consciousness will gradually change. And it goes on about his place here, Richard Rohr's place here. And he says, here at CAC, which is what he calls it, we want to emphasize the importance of practice over theory, of orthopraxy over orthodoxy. We are not saying that theory and orthodoxy are not important. Like St. Francis, we feel that what is ours to do has more to do with our practical engagements in the way we live our daily lives than making verbal assent to this or that idea. In fact, and he goes on about his life work, about doctrines and dogma. He says, in the last 50 years, education theory has come to recognize that listening to lectures or coming to meetings, okay, and reading are among the least effective forms of learning. They are highly passive and individualistic. Do not necessarily integrate your head or your heart or your body, but leave both the ego and the shadow self in a well-defended position. That was me at 20 years of recovery. My ego had all the knowledge, and I protected myself with my knowledge. This was the whole thing. As long as my ego self is in the driver's seat, nothing really new or challenging is going to happen. Remember, my ego is committed to not changing and is highly defensive by its very nature, and my shadow self entirely relies upon delusion and denial. Only the world of practical relationships exposes both of these. So then it goes on and it says, we have to touch each other. We need a broader level than just thinking and reading and, talking about our thoughts. We need a practical one. Somehow we need to engage in hands-on experience, emotional risk-taking. They used to say God is spelled R-I-S-K when I came in. Moving outside of my comfort zone with different people than my usual flattering friends. I need some expanded level of spiritual seeing, or nothing really changes at a cellular or emotional level within minutes or hours of entertaining a new idea. Now, this is true. I've experienced this. I quickly return to my old friends, my assured roles, my familiar neutral grooves, my ego patterns of response, and I am back to business as usual. It is as if I never read the latest book or listened to the most recent lecture or sermon. It is merely another consumer object which I can now add to my repertoire and resume. Done that instead of let it be done unto me. Thanks, folks. Love you.
God, that was so beautiful. Thank you. That really warmed my heart. Could you call on two people, Mary, and then we'll open it up?
I don't know. Can you hear me? Who's on?
I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to call on two people and then we'll open it up?
Let's see. I think I want to hear from Lee. Are you on here? I thought I saw you. Santa Fe, Lee.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm Lee. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
Lee.
Thanks for calling on me, Mary.
you're welcome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. And thanks for your talk. It was great to hear everything you had to say, and I learned a lot from you. You know, this whole thing about fear. I realized early on that that's what was driving me, but to really keep digging down to figure out what I'm afraid of and let that go, or turn it over, or somehow identify it in a way that it's no longer powerful, is a daily struggle for me. I keep coming up with those fears. They're often the same ones. And I just have to face them over and over again and release them slowly and slowly. And so it was good to be reminded of that. And I loved your list of readings. Jennifer sitting here with me talking about, oh yeah, I read that one, I read that one, I read that one. And I was doing the same thing. And I get a lot from reading. I get, my perceptions get opened up, but yet I still have my own beliefs that I somehow lock me into things that I need to be more open to. You know, I'm dependent on my own beliefs. My ego wants to hold on to those. So it's good to be reminded of those things, that I need to have a more open mind when it comes to other ideas. And that's a challenge. You know, I close the door so quickly, but that's why I have to keep coming to meetings, to listen to people, to hear new ideas. And so I'm glad I'm here tonight. Great to hear from you, and good to see you. So talk to you later.
Yeah, absolutely. Wyatt, where are you? Hey, how are you?
Well, thank you. Yeah, my name is Wyatt. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, everybody. Gosh, Mary, what a treat to hear you. And I just kind of let your words just kind of wash over me like clear, fresh water, and it opened a lot of doors in a sense, for me, as for possibilities, and hear your experience and looking at my experience, and the space between the two and the possibilities of my experience coinciding with your experience somewhere down the line here. And so anyway, I just want to thank you, you know, and it's a surprise to be called on. But, you know, I was thinking about some of the things while you were talking about the welcome home thing. And I had an experience like that too. This guy named Matt Cheater. And I remember hearing a tape of him talk, and he said that he was in and out of AA for 10 years before he was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous, I think. And that was kind of my experience. And not that the message wasn't there, but I think I couldn't have heard it, even if Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob were double teaming me. I don't think I would have heard the message, but I was in and out for a while, you know, before I got the message. And I was introduced to the basic text in our big book. And I remember I walked up the steps of a little AA house here in Santa Monica, California, called 26 and Broadway. And I called up central office. I said, hey, you know, I need a meeting. And they said, there's a meeting here. This was on November 29th, 1997. And I walked up, and the greeter, they said, welcome home. And after 10 years of in and out, I just felt this washing over me of, I finally had made it home and to my people. And I am an alcoholic, and this is where I belong, with alcoholics, and you are my people, and I belong here, and this is my home. And it was, you know, it took 10 years to get that, of in and out. And that's a brutal way to live. I don't know if you've ever been in and out for a while, but that's a rough road, you know, and I'm glad that I made it this far. And, you know, I was once asked by one of my sponsors, he said, well, Wyatt, what do you want? You don't want relief, or you want recovery? And I said, well, I just gave him the answer I thought he wanted to hear. I said, well, I want recovery, you know, and but I didn't really have any idea what he was really talking about. And it was a few years later when I discovered what he was talking about. And relief is what you get when you rely or depend on something other than God. And with relief, there's no need for me to change. I can get relief without changing. My ego can remain intact. And my hope would be, as an alcoholic, to start the step process and to make it through all 12 steps with my ego remaining intact. And that hasn't happened yet, you know, and it's a challenge. Recovery, as my understanding, is depending on God. And you know, lately it's been kind of a challenging time for me, and I've been thinking about, you know, what my expectations are of the fellowship and God and recovery, and you know, something happens to somebody, maybe they get sick, or they lose a loved one, or they get divorced, or they lose their job, or things that happen in life. And you know, what I found is a lot of people, you know, are going to say, wow, gosh, you know, sorry to hear that, or that's rough, or God, you know, that's a real shame, or too bad, and you know, hope things work out, or I'll pray for you. And that's really basically all that I think I'm entitled to expect from the fellowship, you know. And when it comes right down to it, what I need is a relationship with God. And this is something I'm told I can develop a relationship based on simple and understandable terms, which I believe are laid out in the book. And after you've been through the process so many times, and you begin to wonder, wow, is there something more, you know? But the actual truth of it to me is that the solution remains the same. The program remains the same. God is still God. And the way to get there is still through our program, and it still works. And my ego wants to tell me, oh, well, you've already been through the steps enough, so you're just going to have to live with that, or the steps don't work on this problem, or this or that. That's just my ego telling me that. And I found that I need to continue to suit up and show up and be vulnerable and be honest and participate, like you were talking about, and with the Richard Rohr reading. And this is something that needs to be participated in. And you know, it's okay. You know, I'm all about looking bad now. You know what I mean? It's like, you say, wow, well, this guy is like a whatever. And I'm like, okay, fine. I don't care what you think, because you know what? I'm here to save my ass You can't save your ass and your face at the same time. And this is where I found my heart starts opening up in these sort of moments of where my face looks bad, but I get to save my ass. You know what I mean? And the change of heart thing, you know, my prayer has been when writing inventory, God, please connect my heart to my pen. Please connect my heart to my pen. And I found it's almost like a spirit is moving through, you know, through God, through into my heart, down my arm, to my pen, writing on the paper. And there's something coming out there that is beyond what my mind will can come up with. It's beyond the ego, and it's hard to describe. And so you said that the change of mind starts with the change of heart. Something about the Dalai Lama saying that, and I think that's true. And we agnostics kind of talks about that a little bit. And I'm gonna, you know, I got to let somebody else share here, but the emotional sobriety thing to me is like, well, in this context, to me, sobriety kind of means stability. You know, the chance to be an emotionally relatively stable person, not an emotionally unstable person, emotionally stable, some balanced person, not all whacked out all the time, right? So, and I think that's what we have an opportunity to do here, and which is, you know, I spent a lot of my life on the other side of that, emotionally unsober, and so I just want to say thank you so much. What a treat to hear you. And what a surprise to be called on. And this is kind of my home Zoom group too, when I can get here too. So God bless you. And I look forward to hearing from somebody else, and God bless everybody here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's so funny, Wyatt, that you can hear people who are just really connected from the heart with exactly what we're talking about in the last couple of weeks. You know, it's like, I think it's about your time to get on here and do this. We're gonna pick a week for you in July. Okay. We're gonna book Wyatt. Just coming out of your heart, man. But before we open this up, I want to call on my friend who called me this morning, and I think that Mary was listening to our conversation. I think that she picked up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I used to hear this lady that used to come to this meeting, and she said, you know, for a long time I'd wear aluminum foil on my head so they couldn't listen to my thoughts. And somebody else goes, man, you did that too? And I was like, oh, dude, I am totally in the right place. So this was a total aluminum helmet moment. So without further ado, I'll call my buddy Jim. Just waking and cracking open like an egg right now.
Well, thank you, Sam. Jim, alcoholic, and it's great to be here. And I woke today, as many of us do from time to time, fortunately, with, you know, what felt like an awakening and kind of some transformation, and the simplicity of it without going too far is, you know, I've really been on kind of a quest, and at the end of the day, the thing and the truth that I was able to recognize is that at some point along the way, prior to this quest that was, looking back a little bit now, even though I'm just coming out of it, was, you know, facilitated by the ego and self as I am on my endeavor, came from the lack of faith. And there was, as you know, I've developed back into God's will over the last week very strongly. Here came this faith. And, you know, faith for me, and if I can encapsulate it in words, is the knowing of God's presence and existence in my life, that I'm 1000% taken care of, and that I am not seeking protection. You know, I'm protected. And in that moment, you know, where, you know, I hit my knees in thankfulness, or see myself in the mirror, and I can see this soul that is available, where you just want to weep in tears of just the comfort that comes from that. And, you know, that is what is given, you know, as Mary had shared, and Kurt, you know, when we, or even Dawn P, as she mentioned when she first spoke, you know, when we can see the eyes of God, or we're seeing through God, you know, that is what there's no room for the ego in that space. And, you know, for me, at the end of the day, I'll just share this too on awakening. I love that we had that parallel because, you know, the thing that I recognized as I was seeking all these journeys for myself so that I could remove this separation of my mind and my heart and my soul and be one. I really recognized in awakening, it talks about our thoughts, you know, our mental faculties. God gave us brains to use. If I am in faith, I can trust this thing. I can trust that I am guided and that I'm awake. And man, it's just nice to be awake. And that was a beautiful talk. And really grateful to be here and good to see everybody.
Love you, Jim. And we have Ashley Marie has her hand raised. Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Marie, and I'm an alcoholic. And Mary, thank you so much. It's so wonderful. I've heard you share a little on these meetings over the past year, and thank you for speaking from your heart. And I'm so grateful for this meeting and this group of people. Whenever I've got about a year and a half, and whenever I find myself getting yanked around by my ego and in this three-dimensional realm, I hop on this meeting and my heart just softens so much. And it's so important to hear that this is we have to do this every day in our lives. We have to live this every day in our lives. After 20 years, you can still be yanked around by all these things. And I just really appreciate the wisdom that I hear on this meeting. And I'm so grateful to all of you. And thanks for helping me stay sober. That's all.
Thank you so much for sharing. Danny. You're muted, broski. You got to unmute yourself and rewind that about 10 seconds.
Yep. Danny, alcoholic. Grateful to be here and be sober. Mary Taylor, thank you so much. I always need to hear that this is a process and not an event. You know, I just want to check box and move on. So thanks for bringing that up again. You said, I actually have a couple questions. You said, watch what I defend and why I defend it. And I'd like to ask you maybe to expand on that a little bit. And then you mentioned about on your 11th step, when you write down your thought life. As you're meditating, do you pause and then write, or do you try to remember it at the end and write it all at one time? Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. Okay, well, let's start just with what you asked about the writing. What I do is I usually meditate, and when I'm done with the meditation, I just have I have a journal. I always have a journal. I found journals in the drawer here that were written. I should be throwing those away, I think. Anyway, I write. After I meditate, I sit for a moment, and I know that I'm going to be in communication with something, with a greater power, not my higher Mary Thea power that I created the first 20 years, but a greater power. And I sit and I ask a question. I just ask a question. And usually it's a one-word thing. I don't have to go on with writing this long story because God already knows. But I remember the first one I did was on dependence. I just wrote dependence down. And then I just waited. And instructions from that father, Bill W., are to start writing with an endearment, as if God is a best friend and loves you or something, so say something like, my dear child, or my loved one, lovely child, whatever, it doesn't make any difference, whatever it comes up in your soul. And then just write until you get tired of writing. And then end it. And I didn't read mine when I did it. This is just my experience. Maybe you can read it afterwards and try to figure it out. I don't like being in my head, because my ego takes over. But so I don't do that. I mean, I write. I was challenged for a month. I said, I'm going to do that. And I want to go back and read, because by then I'm away from whatever I was trying to figure out at the time, and so I just read it. And I was just amazed that it had nothing to do with anything except mainly for me to stay open and awake. And I have this thing that I do with the second and third step. This is probably good for you new people. I don't know. I mean, I've been doing it for 40 or more years, but when I find out where I feel safe and protected, most of I live down there in Tampa, and I'm 30 feet from the bay, and the energy off that bay is unbelievable. If I didn't think there was a greater power, it's probably like you, Kurt, when you look at the Pacific every morning. The energy, it's so great. It's amazing. And you can almost, you ever woken up and, looked up and you saw a sunrise, or, I mean, I'm doing flowers lately. They have an energy in themselves. Now I've got this little bird. I could go on. But anyway, I have this energy, and what the energy does is it puts me right in the moment. And so what I do with that energy is I make an invisible bubble out of the energy. I just, I feel safe and protected usually when I'm there. I just feel this amazing thing. And so what I do is I get in the bubble every morning. I get out of bed and I step in the bubble, because I was riddled with fear, everybody. I was just riddled with it. If you looked at me wrong, I was sure that I had done something, and I'd apologize for breathing. And it was like, so I was just so scared. And so I got in the bubble, and then during the day, if somebody scared me or I got bad thoughts or whatever, I would reinforce my bubble. I'd just keep reinforcing it. And I went through this thing. So for you people who know me and I sponsor and stuff, that I do that. What is that? That's actually a physical doing of your second and third step. You know that? Can you imagine you're coming to believe in a power greater than yourself? It's a form of a power greater than yourself that I felt. I made a bubble of that energy. I stepped into the bubble, and then I made the decision to turn my will, my thoughts, and my actions over to the bubble, because I reinforced it all day. You know that I did that recently with somebody. I don't know if she's on here or something. But I remember I said to her, now this is what I want you to do and everything, and let me know. The person said, no, she is not, I don't think. Maybe she is, I don't know. But she said something very nice to me. She texted me and she said, I already feel this, and but I was thrilled, because if they want to, how many times have you long timers had people call you up and they say, I want you to take me through the steps. It's like they've been taken through the steps 100,000 times. What the hell do I have to take you through? I mean, you can all read, we can all ponder stuff. But if someone would come to me and say, I want you to take me through the steps because I want a closer connection to this power greater than yourself, by God, I'll jump on them in a second. But they don't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do it. And but boy, when they come back and they tell me that they've had an experience with the bubble, ooh, I got them. Because they're out of their head. And if they get out of their head, I'm fine. If I could cut my head off, I'd be perfect, because the main problem center is between my ears. And so that's what I do. And I take that energy, and that energy tells me things when I write that have things like, I remember one of the writings, I asked something about connection, and I was listening to this song, and it's called The Deer's Cry, DER', cry. Now, if you don't like Jesus Christ, don't listen to it. But if you don't mind, and you can transfer out Jesus Christ and put in greater power or something, you can listen to it. And it enhances the bubble. That enhances the bubble. Now, that was given to me. I don't know when. I just said, what is this? And it said, continue to use music. It softens your intellectual icy mountain, as I meditated. So that's something that was a direct communication for me and my personal soul's evolution. So that's how that is, Danny. What was the other question you wanted to know? Something about, what was it? Oh, I'm the fish I got to catch, or what do I defend? What I defend, usually what that means is when I have asked myself and not necessarily answered why are you defending so much? What I find behind it is my fear that I'm not right, fear that I might have to change. It brings I have found that anything that I defend so much, it's kind of like, with the thing that we read in the beginning of this, the emotional sobriety, as long as my dependence is even on AA being the only way, I'm not going to grow. Do you ever look at that part of what we read? It says that you don't. So dependence, that's a guideline, yeah. But, I can't, why would I, you have to do AA, you have to, oh, for crying out loud. I'm not God, but this is the way that has worked for me. This is the way I've worked. So why would I have to have you do it? You find whatever way. Somebody that's on here asked me to work with them. They said, when am I going to get this, God? I've done this right. I've done it. Which screaming away at me about it. And she said, when am I get? I said, I don't know. And she said, well, am I going to get it? I said, I don't know if you're going to get God or not. This is what we do. And I don't know that. Remember, we're all candles. Nobody's an authority here. Your real authority and your real response is deep down inside. All we do is hold a candle so you can get through some of your darkness. And that's kind of how I feel, Danny. If you're defending something, why do you have to defend it? Why do you have to be right? Why can't you be wrong? Maybe somebody else can get it another way. And that's pretty much what I've had to look at with myself. That's why the 10th step, it says, we're all going to be wrong. Do you know that? The 10th step is that none of us are going to do this perfect. I'm going to be wrong. Can I still be wrong at 47 years? Yeah. I'm wrong a lot. I was wrong the other night. Heather was talking to me about something. I was really at it. And I had to make an amendment. I said, the reason I was at it, I was so frightened for this person. I was so frightened. I love this person. And my reaction to that was inappropriate. So I'm wrong a lot. I'm wrong a lot. I know, I'm not afraid to be wrong. That's what I think Wyatt said. I think, well, what the hell? Anyways, I am here because I want recovery. And I am here because page 129 says it's a limitless load. It's limitless what we can get here. As long as I mine it for the rest of my life and insist on giving the whole thing away, I will get the dividends of this. And that's why I'm still here doing the drill. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And we have time for a quick one. Carrie, you had your hand up.
Okay, I can be pretty quick. Thank you, Mary, so much. I came in 1984, so you got 10 big ones ahead of me. And I loved hearing about Sybil and Clancy and 26 and Broadway with Wyatt and everything. And thank you so much for bringing up. I used to take LSD and I'd paint Ram Dass book, Be Here Now. I was just coloring the butterflies, and I loved hearing about Gurdjieff and Ospensky and all those people from the Oxford group. And Madame Blavatsky was another one that I used to read about. She said, there's no higher religion than truth, and that's what I think we all do here. We try to, the treasure hunt is us, but I just loved all your heart of just sharing just in a gentle way, because we all get it differently. None of us look like our stories. We all come in here and fall in love with random strangers that it just seems impossible. And what a great thing. I'm still cheering and in awe of my 37 years of sobriety. And thank you all for putting this meeting together.
Thanks.
Thank you. I agree with whoever was. I think it was I think it was Wyatt or Kurt when we were talking about just letting that share just wash over me. Love that. It was beautiful. So we're out of time. And why don't we, Mary Thayer would, well, the way we do this, is there anything before we stop? Is there anything else you feel like you've thought of before that you'd like to share about before we end it?
But the only thing I'd like to say is, Missy is on here. Missy, will you just say hi? Because she is my best friend in human form. And the two of us continue to walk shoulder to shoulder to escape disaster together. And say hello, Miss. Where are you? She already left.
I didn't want to say anything, but it just happened. Like right then, she just turned off. So she's definitely called out and busted.
Funny. Well,
She's
you don't
called
get
out
to
and busted for skipping out before the Lord's Prayer, which, you know,
That's
it's a
it.
long meeting. I
I'll
get
be
it. Some
after
people.
her.
Yeah. But we'll call on her the next, maybe we'll call on her to share first for the next meeting before somebody opens up to say, we need to hear from you, Missy,
Yeah.
since you skipped out early.
Wake her up.
Well, much love to everybody. We'll close this meeting with a moment of silence and just go to our inner room and say the Lord's Prayer to ourselves for all who care to join. Thank you so much for everybody who participated, and I really appreciate you doing this for us tonight, Mary Thayer. That was beautiful. Really touched my heart tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you
guys
so
for
much.
making this such a special thing.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
Mary.
Mary.